The church having secrets? What? No way. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host Emily and today we are counting down our list of the top 10 disturbing church secrets the Pope tried to conceal. Coming in at number 10 is scandals of the Vatican Bank. The Vatican Bank, also called the Institute for the Works of Religion, IOR, has been involved in numerous scandals. A substantial amount of money was paid to the IOR so it cannot be tracked by Western banks, and it was used to store billions of dollars. It was created during World War II to avoid the restrictions placed on financial transactions by the Allies, and as a result, the Vatican Bank, being exempt from such restrictions, became the world's best offshore bank. Since that time, the Vatican Bank has become pretty notorious for its connections to organized crime. In the 1970s, it's alleged the Vatican tried to purchase $900 million in counterfeit bonds and securities from a mafia-linked operation, and in 2013, a priest was arrested for trying to use the Vatican Bank to smuggle millions of euros for the mob. The most famous of the Vatican mafia scandals is the collapse of Banco Ambrosino, an Italian bank in which the Vatican was the main shareholder and which it used to launder money for the mafia. Now, after the bank's collapse, its chairman, who some believe ended the life of Pope John Paul I, was found hanged under a tree, which was concluded to be a mob homicide dressed up like he took his own life. Number 9. The case of Anna Ecklund. Anna Ecklund's demonic possession and exorcism occurred over several decades, culminating in an extensive exorcism that lasted from August 18th to December 23rd, 1928 in Erling, Iowa. Anna was said to have exhibited symptoms similar to possession beginning as a young girl and was 46 years old during her final exorcism by Father Theophilus Reisinger, a Roman Catholic priest. She would levitate, howl, and hang from the frame of a doorway. Now, the extensive exorcisms resulted in the deterioration of her body as she refused to consume food, also vomiting foul debris and what appeared to be tobacco leaves. Her head, lips, and face reportedly swelled, and she was also able to speak in multiple languages unknown to her. Anna was believed to be possessed by Judas Iscariot as well as Jacob, her own father, who had cursed her with the help of his lover and her aunt Mina. On December 23rd, the final day of the exorcism, Father Reisinger commanded the demons in the name of the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit through the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary to depart to hell. Anna collapsed on her bed and began to shriek Beelzebub, Judas, Jacob, Mina, followed by hell, hell, hell. She opened her eyes and then spoke in her own voice, saying, "My Jesus, mercy, praised be Jesus Christ." The exorcism was successful, and Anna's case is considered by theology and paranormal scholars to be one of the most abundantly documented cases of possession in the 20th century, including a profile in a 1936 issue of Time magazine. Number 8. Sedamsville Rectory. The Sedamsville Rectory is a historic building that once served as home for the priest of Our Lady of Perpetual Help Church. Now, priests of questionable moral character were rumored to live here, if you know what I mean, including a man who was moved around a lot considerably before retiring from the priesthood, leaving some to believe the church was covering up his tendency of mistreating animals. Now, his fellow priests later confessed to hearing strange sounds coming from his bedroom and feeling uneasy in his presence. As the alleged site of the mistreatment, it's no shock that this place has some wicked demonic energy. Reports detail strange howling cries and deep scratches appearing in the flesh of workers. The current owner of the building, Terry Scott, even claimed that she was pushed by an invisible force. Now, the presence was so evil that a priest was called in to perform an exorcism, but his efforts did little to keep the demonic energy at bay, and whatever monster lurked there still remains, and I personally would not want to mess with it. Number 7. The Apostolic Penitentary. The Apostolic Penitentary is a secret tribunal that investigates so-called heinous crimes of individuals. It was supposedly found in 1179 and was kept secret until 2009. Only the Pope can grant absolution to people brought to this tribunal. Examples include attempting to assassinate the Pope, a priest breaking the seal of confessional by exposing the identity or the sin of someone confessing, a priest having sex with someone and then forgiving them for the sin of doing it with a priest, performing or paying for the termination of a pregnancy and then trying to become a priest, or spitting out a communion wafer. The Pope acts at the head of this tribunal and is called the Major Penitentiary and can either offer absolution or let the automatic excommunication stand. Now, such cases are held privately and anonymously as they are considered to be a serious matter. Number 6. Vatican secret archives. I mean, they're a secret for a reason. right? Well, many theories have naturally arisen about what might be held among the 53 miles of shelves and 12 centuries worth of documents only available to a select few. Now, it doesn't take a lot of effort to find people claiming the archives contain evidence of extraterrestrial life, proof Jesus never actually existed, or the true secret name of God, which has been handed down from pope to pope since 463 AD. The archives are not fully public, they're only open to scholars who have passed a rigorous vetting process, and journalists were not allowed to see the contents of the archives until 2010. Furthermore, documents within the archive only become available for viewing, even to this limited audience, after 75 years. While the Vatican claims the reason for this is how difficult it is to process the enormous bulk of documents within the archives, conveniently this means any documents relating to Pope Pius XII's actions during the Second World War and their other scandals are still restricted. Number 5. $5 million cover-up. A scandal and a subsequent cover-up regarding some spendtheft monks in the 1970s proved to be very costly for the Vatican in terms of both money and reputation. As reported by the New York Times, members of the monastic order in Philadelphia, known as the Paulines, raised money, in fact millions of dollars, for religious projects such as saying masses, building shrines, and renovating a cemetery, but they did not actually do any of those things. Instead, these monks used these funds to purchase cars, televisions, stereos, and other luxury items. Now, the Vicar General used misappropriated donations to keep a mistress, as well as stealing half the salaries of friends of whom he had appointed to the monastery jobs. Now, despite stealing over $20 million in donations, the Paulines still managed to default on over $4 million in church bonds. Now, the only way they were able to avoid lawsuits, bankruptcy, and criminal prosecution was through the intervention of the Pope and the Archbishop of Philadelphia, who dished over $5 million to quiet the Paulines' creditors and pay back their fraudulent loans. Number 4. Helping Germans. Following Allied victories in Germany at the end of World War II, German soldiers suddenly found Europe a pretty not great place to live. Thousands of high-ranking officials, many of whom were war criminals, managed to escape across the Atlantic to a number of South American countries, most notably Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. It's said that these soldiers were knowingly assisted by the Vatican. The Vatican chose to help them because they had hope for the revival of European Christianity and had a significant fear of the growing influence of the Soviet Union. Now, whatever the reason, the Vatican Refugee Commission unquestionably knowingly provided these fugitives with false identities. Now, the Vatican has consistently refused to comment on these events, and the majority of the relevant documents have still not been released from the secret archives. Number 3. The dead man's trial. In the year 1897, Pope Stephen VI went through a lot of trouble to put a dead man on trial. It was one of the most bizarre things the Vatican ever did, well, at least as far as we know. The remains of the former pope were put on trial by one of his successors. Pope Formosus had already been dead for a few months and had no way of defending himself or his honor. Nonetheless, he was disinterred, put in robes, and stuck on the papal throne to be handed justice. A deacon was even appointed to speak on the behalf of the corpse. Now, Pope Stephen accused the former pope in front of an audience and acted like he was talking to a real person. The dead pope was, at the end of his trial, found guilty of stealing the throne from Pope Stephen, and Pope Stephen then had all of his acts while officially the pope labeled null and void, and everything Pope Formosus had done was undone. 3 of his fingers were cut off, and his body was cast into a river. Shortly after, though, Pope Stephen was thrown into prison and then strangled to death. Ties to the mafia. On September 29, 1978, Pope John Paul I was sitting up in his bed, but he was a corpse. John Paul had been the pope for only a bit more than a month, and Vatican officials say that John Paul died of a heart attack, but there was never an autopsy of his body to prove this, and when he died, the Vatican had indisputable ties to organized crime, including the American mafia. As if to put emphasis on that, in 1982, the president of the Vatican Bank, Father Paul Marcus, resigned from his position after a trial of scams and scandals showed that the Vatican Bank had strong ties to the mafia. Now, after some time, the Vatican Bank had to refund more than $200 million in American dollars to creditors. Father Paul Marcus was never charged for a crime, but he has been suspected in playing a hand in lots of sudden deaths, even Pope John Paul's. And coming at number 1 is missing books of the Holy Bible. In the year 1684, the Vatican removed 14 books from the Holy Bible. Now, to this day, there's still no explanation as to why, and the Vatican doesn't want anyone anyone to know. There were originally 80 books in the Holy Bible when it was translated from Latin to English back in 1611. These days, though, there are only 66. The missing books include Esdras, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, the Songs of the Three Holy Children, Bel and the Dragon, Maccabees, and the Prayer of Manasses. What's even stranger is that Jesus' name was spelled Lysis before these 14 books were removed. The church changed the pronunciation and the spelling, and why were these mysterious books removed? There are many theories. Some say the content of these books didn't fit in with the Roman Catholic Church's narrative, so they were simply taken out. Some believe they made the Holy Bible too long and confusing, so they were removed, but there's no real answer. None of the books were particularly nefarious, and they don't seem to include any secrets, well, that we know of. That's all for our list of the top 10 disturbing church secrets the Pope tried to conceal. Which secret do you think is the worst? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. I'm your host, Emily, and we'll see you next time. Peace.